Order, order. I'll call Dame Caroline Dinage to move the motion, and then we'll then call the Minister to respond. There will not be an opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention for 30-minute debates. Order, order. Dame Caroline Dinage to move the motion.
Thank you so much, Sir George. It's a great pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. We're so lucky to live in a country that gives our young residents so many opportunities to learn new skills, to have adventures, and to make lifelong friends. From the guides to the scouts, from the Duke of Edinburgh to the cadets, volunteers across our country just devote so much of their own time and their energy to youth programmes, which add just so much to the formative experiences of our young people. It's been an incredibly difficult few years for children and young adults. The damage which has been caused by the COVID pandemic is impossible to fully ascertain, but NHS figures show that the number of children seeking help for their mental health has risen by almost 50% since the start of the pandemic, Sir George. Schools were closed, socialising banned, and all of this, of course, is having a lasting and painful legacy on our young people. We all know that outdoor activities and spending time with friends in nature is good for people's mental well-being. There are a myriad of different studies to that effect. Even NHS England has now started offering nature prescriptions. So now is the time we need more opportunities for young people to have fun, to spend time outdoors and to socialise and be children. As more and more young people spend time longer and longer on the internet and on their phones, cooped up indoors, now is the time to be providing more opportunities for them to get out, to do something fun and adventurous, to build a raft and see if it sinks, to go abseiling or maybe learn life skills like cooking. Now is not the time to be pulling away from providing these opportunities. And so I asked the Minister what his department is doing to provide more opportunities for young people, which get them out and about, help them learn new skills and help them build those friendships. The Girl Guides has a very proud tradition of having this kind of positive impact on the lives of girls, not just in the United Kingdom, Sir George, but across the world. The Board of Girlguiding has recently taken two incredibly concerning decisions regarding the future of the organisation. That is the proposed closure of all 5 of its outdoor activity centres across the country, as well as the full shutdown of British Girlguiding overseas. Now, it goes without saying that Girlguiding is a movement that's just touched the lives of so many thousands of girls across the globe. And I'd like to take the opportunity, first and foremost, to thank the thousands of people across the country and across the world who've given countless hours, evenings and weekends and much more to the betterment and opportunities of young girls everywhere. I will.
Jim Shannon.
Honourable Liddy for Gosport for bringing this forward. It's a subject matter which is very important to us all, and that's why we're all here, by the way. But does the Honourable Liddy not agree that the impact of organisations like Girl Guides, also the Scouts, the Campaigners Boys Brigade, the Campaigners Girls Brigade, which I have in my constituency in some numbers, having a positive mental health influence for our children, cannot be overstated, and that our thanks should go to the voluntary sector and also to the churches who are deeply involved in these, who give of their time to teach children skills and practical topics, but also in building self-confidence and self-worth, and that their value to society should be highlighted and recognised. The Honourable Lady has done that well today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. The Honourable Gentleman makes such an excellent point, and I didn't mention the Girls' Brigade and the Boys' Brigade, who he says, as he says, make such a wonderful contribution, and they do build those formative skills that young people need to face the challenges of life ahead, and they do make such a huge difference to individuals' lives. So that's why this decision to close down every single one of the 5 Girl Guiding activity centres across the United Kingdom is so bizarre. Girl Guiding is closing down opportunities for young women and girls who would otherwise struggle to afford them. This decision comes after the body blow to Girl Guiding, that is the move to end their overseas operation, which serves thousands of girls across the world and has been doing so for decades. Both of these utterly bizarre decisions, Sir George, have come after no real warning and no consultation with members. Of course, yes.
I've been watching, Sir George, this developing disaster with increasing horror. The reason which may lie behind some of it appears to be a disastrous venture into property investment. Does my right honourable friend know that the headquarters of the Girl Guides, having spent millions on itself and millions more on a hotel venture which went bust, owing unpaid rent to the Girl Guides of nearly £2.8 million, that all this is alleged to be completely unconnected to the decision to close the overseas activities and the training and activity centres, one of which Foxleys is in my constituency. This reminds me of the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, with the exception that it's cutting its own limbs off and not waiting for other people to do it.
Thank you very much, Sir George. I wasn't aware of that, and I know that my honourable friend has just been such a great friend to Girlguiding in Foxleys and his constituency, and a great champion of Girlguiding across the country. And what he says is incredibly worrying, because in fact, Sir George, there has been very slim, in fact, very little information at all about the thinking behind these decisions. And it's interesting the comments he makes as to what could potentially be the reason for it. So as he says, one of the centres to be sold is Foxleys in Clay Hill in Hampshire, which is the closest one to my personal constituency. Waddow Hall in the Ribble Valley, which we know is very close to the heart of our much-loved Deputy Speaker. Blackland Farm in Mid-Sussex. Glenbrook in High Peak, Derbyshire. And Innisgain in Montgomeryshire on the edge of the Snowdonia National Park. These decisions don't merely affect Girlguiding members, but many others across the country. The closed activity centres don't just serve young girls in Girlguiding. They run courses and activities and provide opportunities for all sorts of groups of young people, scouts, schools, and many, many others. If these activity centres are sold off, there is no bringing them back. That's it. They will be gone, and they will not be providing opportunities for young women and countless other young people. They will simply be turned into another relic of a wonderful past where children could be children.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and she makes a very important argument about these centres being lost forever. When I visited the 5th Romsey Girl Guides over the summer, the girls there made the point that they had all enjoyed Foxleys, which said is the constituency of my honourable friend and neighbour for New Forest East. But they were concerned that future generations of brownies, rainbows, guides wouldn't have the same opportunities that they had had. So in fact, it's the girls themselves who are concerned for future generations and feel that they have missed out on an opportunity to be consulted, to be listened to, and to perhaps change the decision.
Caroline Dinage.
Well, my right honourable friend puts it absolutely perfectly. I couldn't put it better myself. The girls are concerned about the future for their peers, for those that come up behind them, for those who deserve the same opportunities and life chances that they've had. And we only, Sir George, have to look as far as Scotland to see what is likely to happen here in England. Back in the summer of 2020, Girlguiding Scotland sold off their wonderful training centre at Nethererd under the guise of COVID, and the site has now already been rubber-stamped into holiday lets. So George, it looks as though we may even now be too late to get Girlguiding to change their mind. They confirmed their plans to go ahead with the sale back on August the 14th. Now, local communities have been valiant in their fight to save these activity centres. Foxleys has already been declared an asset of community value by the New Forest District Council, in which my honourable friend resides, in a move which will hopefully enable the new charity, Foxleys Future, to take up the mantle and save the site. I know that the Waddow Hall Trust in the Ribble Valley are following suit with similar plans, as are others. Now, of course, I wish all these groups the very best in acquiring and maintaining their sites, should they be sold off by Girlguiding. But importantly, what I want to know from the Minister is what the government's going to do to prevent these sites falling into the hands of property developers to become more holiday lets. And what is the government going to do to ensure that the important capacity for outdoor activities such as these are maintained across the UK and kept available at a low cost for those who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford them? So, George, we live in a digital world. Going out and playing with your friends is actually becoming a rarity for some children today. And that's why it's so important that we expand organised outdoor activity. And that's why it's so alarming at this time and at this place to see these plans to take this away from the children. And it isn't just young people in the UK who are being impacted by the short-sighted decision by Girlguiding. The decision to end Girlguiding overseas will bring a close to well over 100 years of Girlguiding across the world. Up until this month, British Girlguiding operated in 36 separate countries and territories. These are now either all shut or shutting. This momentous decision has been taken seemingly without any proper consultation. British Guiding Overseas have said in a statement that they still don't understand why this decision has been taken by Girlguiding, and that despite many requests for further information, this has still not been delivered. But it's important to note, Sir George, that the end of Girlguiding Overseas will not only shut down opportunities for thousands of girls across the world, but it will also take away the important English-speaking, girl-only spaces which have so long provided a lifeline to so many members. British Girlguiding Overseas consists of two main elements: units that run in the Middle East and Africa, Asia, Benelux and France, Europe and Lone Guiding, and the units in British Overseas Territories. Now, while Girlguiding continues to support the Crown dependencies of Jersey, Guernsey and the Isle of Man, the many other territories served by these organisations are all set to lose all their support. Now, this is something that's going to be felt particularly acutely by our overseas territories. They have very special links with the UK. They're often taken for granted, and yet these often remote parts of the world, like Bermuda or the Falkland Islands, in many cases, they see this country as their big sister, someone who looks out for them. And at a time when the world feels particularly unstable, and when the UK needs to be looking out, not in, to take away this kind of level of support and cast branches away to fend for themselves in an incredibly retrograde step, which will undoubtedly lead to branches collapsing and opportunities for young girls simply melting away. It's also a retrograde step for our own global soft power, where we hear so much about that. We focus so much energy and attention on it, and yet here we are taking it away. British Girlguiding Overseas have simply not rolled over and allowed this step to take place without action, and they should be commended for their efforts in trying to secure alternative solutions. But the shock announcement and rapid deadlines set by Girlguiding have left them very few options, Sir George.
I'm very grateful to my right honourable friend, she's being very generous with her time. Does she not agree with me that it's almost as if the people at the top of this organisation, who don't seem to be answerable even to their own council, still less their own mass membership, are determined to take steps that are ultimately bound to lead to the closing of the organisation? And given that it does seem to have a very undemocratic structure, does she agree with me that perhaps we ought to be looking to the Minister for an expression of support for the idea of the Charity Commission mounting an investigation as to what's been going on in this organisation, which appears to have strayed far from its founding objectives?
I thank my honourable friend for that suggestion. I think the excellent Minister will, I'm sure, respond to it, because it is a very sensible suggestion. It does sound to me as if Girlguiding, the upper echelons of Girlguiding, are standing around with their fingers in their ears humming loudly, because they've rejected applications for an extension to continue discussions. They've rejected the request of British Girlguiding Overseas to become a charity in their own right, and they've rejected their request to set up a separate franchise. So, to bring my thoughts to a close, Sir George, so that we can hear from the Minister, I know the government is aware of Girlguiding's plans to end British Girlguiding Overseas. I would be very keen to hear the Minister's thoughts on that, and I would urge him to do whatever it takes to get Girlguiding around the table to help save this, to help stop British Girlguiding Overseas coming to an end. These are two retrograde moves. Terrible step backwards for Girl Guides, terrible steps backwards for young girls across and young people across the UK and across the world, and actually for our global soft power. I'd be really keen to hear how the government can help push back against these disastrous moves, safeguard the future of the guides in the UK and globally.
Question is that this House has considered the role and future of youth programmes and girl guiding. Minister.
Thank you very much indeed, Sir George, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I'd also like to thank my honourable friend for securing this important debate, and also to mention the honourable members for Strangford, New Forest East and Romsey South, Hampton North, who've spoken in this debate, and I know have collared me when they can on these issues, and also those who are not able to contribute but equally share the passion, our Deputy Speaker, Member for Ribble Valley, and our Honourable friend, the Member for Mid Sussex. Sir George, a thriving youth sector, of course, is a critical part of so much that my department and the whole of government is hoping to achieve for young people, because approximately 85% of young persons' waking hours are spent outside of school. And it's during this time thousands of youth workers and volunteers make a tremendous difference, as the Honourable Lady mentioned, to those young people's lives. And they provide early intervention, they help to reduce pressures on other public services, and they also build trusted relationships, enabling young people to achieve their ambitions. I was fortunate recently to visit an NCS residential in Doncaster and to see how transformational youth services can be. The impact that these activities and the trusted relationships that were provided cannot be underestimated. The young people told me firsthand how that they felt more confident, they'd overcome some of their own personal fears, they'd developed new skills, and they'd made new friends, sometimes from backgrounds that they'd never mixed with before. So all of this, and all of this does get amplified around the country, and I thank those volunteers for it. Now, I know that many honourable members here today will have been disappointed, as we've heard, to learn that Girlguiding have decided to sell their 5 activity centres in the UK and cease overseas operations. Having seen firsthand myself the benefits that can be gained for young people by participating in programmes hosted by organisations such as Girlguiding, I share in this disappointing news. However, as honourable members will know, the Girlguiding is an independent organisation, and their Board of Trustees have a fiscal responsibility to take decisions that are in the organisation's best interest, to secure its future and the safety of its members, and they tell us that they have not taken this decision lightly. That said, I do understand the disappointment also in the lack of consultation, enabling people to make their views known. I give way to my own
Minister, and I fully recognise that this falls outside his ministerial responsibilities, but would he agree with me that where there appears to have been millions of pounds fire-hosed away from the objectives of the organisation, and where there is clearly a lack of internal democratic accountability, it really is to the Charity Commission that we have to look as a last resort to see if this mismanagement can even now be limited in its terrible effects.
Well, my honourable friend raises a very important point, and of course, as a registered charity, they are obliged to do the usual reporting. Of course, any cases can be raised by anybody to the Charity Commission, and if colleagues feel that they want to take that step, they may wish to do so. But if I could just perhaps outline a bit more from what we've heard from Girlguiding. Now, I understand from them that their decision to close the 5 activity centres is due to both significant capital investment that is required to ensure that they are fit for purpose, but also, they say, reflects the ongoing running costs in light of low levels of demand from Girlguiding groups. It is anticipated that funds from the sale of the activity centres, valued collectively at around £10 million, will be invested in a range of activities to support future Girlguiding and its members, including adventures away from home.
I apologise for interrupting the Minister, but does he not agree with me that actually, to look at the use of the site coming out of a period of a pandemic where everything's been locked down is incredibly short-sighted? Anyone with any modicum of business sense about them would be looking at actually how you can attract a new audience, given, in my constituency, we've seen the number of youngsters joining the scouting organisation to a higher level than ever before. There is a huge appetite amongst young people to get out there and join these sort of activities. So, shouldn't they be looking in a much more broader, more optimistic, forward-looking sense, rather than judging based upon what's happened over the last couple of years, which has obviously been a completely unusual series of events?
Minister.
So I'll come on in a minute to what I perhaps propose to do post this debate. What I also understand is their decision to cease. I want to go on to the operations, the overseas operations, and they're saying that is due to the complexity of providing Girlguiding's Board of Trustees with appropriate reassurances on both the safety of members and integrity of operations in line with their legal responsibilities across the 36 countries and territories. Operations in the Middle East, Africa, Asia and Europe ended on the 1st of September this year, and in the British Overseas Territories, operations will cease at the end of this year. Now, my officials are in regular contact with Girlguiding, alongside colleagues from FCDO and the Ministry of Defence, and they've been exploring Girlguiding's options for units in the British Overseas Territories and military bases to continue operating, and we remain hopeful that a solution can be found to support this work and ensure that the guiding experience in these locations continues, consistent with Girlguiding's decisions about what is appropriate for the organisation. And I and my department absolutely recognise the benefit Girlguiding brings to girls and young women, and that is why, as part of our National Youth Guarantee's Uniformed Youth Fund, we have provided Girlguiding with over £2 million to create more opportunities to take part in Girlguiding, and they have already created over 1,000 new places and recruited hundreds of new volunteers and opened 40 new units, with more to come. And I know that many honourable members here today will join me in thanking them for what they're doing, but whilst I recognise that my department has been in regular contact with them, as have I will ensure that I write to Girlguiding to highlight this debate today and the contributions from honourable members, and I will then happily send members who are here present for this meeting the response that we receive. My honourable friend asked me also to highlight what we are doing as a government. I think it is important to do that, because ensuring all young people have access to youth service is a top priority for both myself and the Secretary of State. In 2021, we undertook the Youth Review to ensure our spending and programmes aligned to the needs of young people. And in response, we are investing over £500 million in delivering that National Youth Guarantee. And that our commitment is that by 2025, every young person in England will have access to regular out-of-school activities, adventures away from home, recognising how important they are, and opportunities to deliver. And to realise these ambitious aims of the National Youth Guarantee, we are investing in a few key programmes. We're creating and redeveloping up to 300 youth facilities through the Youth Investment Fund, and over £160 million has already gone out of the door, supporting 87 organisations to give thousands more young people access opportunities in their communities. And we've also reformed the National Citizen Service programme into a year-round offer, so that thousands of young people who have signed up to the new programme will be ready for work and ready for the world. And we recognise the benefits of greater join-up between formal education and the youth sector, for example. So with the Department for Education, we're expanding the Duke of Edinburgh Awards scheme that my honourable friend mentioned in schools and communities, and over 400 new organisations have already started delivering the programme, giving more than 70,000 young people the opportunity to challenge themselves, support their communities and learn new vital skills. And we're also supporting uniformed youth organisations to recruit more volunteers to sustainably increase their capacity. Almost 3,000 young people already have a new place in an existing group or in one of the new 144 groups that have been established. And then alongside that, the National Lottery Community Fund are continuing to invest in the I Will Fund to help thousands of young people make a difference in their community through social action. So we recognise that there's a lot of work to do and that there is a tremendous amount... Yes?
Giving way, and it's perhaps not entirely relevant to what he's just saying, but I feared he was coming to an end. Can I just ask what... He's spoken of his work with the Department for Education. Can I ask what connection there has been between his department and the Department for Levelling Up? There is a real concern in the New Forest, and my honourable friend from New Forest East mentioned holiday lets, that these sites, which I note at least 3 of them, Snowdonia, the Peak District and the New Forest, are national parks. There's a real fear that these sites are going to end up as luxury holiday lodges thus restricting the ability of young people from disadvantaged communities to get out into our national parks. And I just wondered whether there had been any discussion, consultation around issues like the Caravan Act, which is of particular concern to the New Forest National Park Authority, and whether he was prepared to discuss with colleagues across government what could be done specifically to protect these sites from that sort of unwanted development in our national parks.
Well, my right honourable friend will appreciate that I can't make a commitment to stray into those areas of work, but I will absolutely happily raise the issue that she has brought up with my colleagues in DLUG. I know when I held that post for a short time, I know that it was a big issue then, but I recognise that there will be concerns locally about what will happen to these sites, and I'll happily address those to my honourable friends in that department. Yes, give way.
Minister, for giving way to me a second time. Can I just take the opportunity to stress that when Girlguiding UK say that only 10% of the movement use these 5 centres, we are still talking about tens of thousands of young people. And one does have to question a situation when they don't say, well, we'll feel we've got to close one centre in order to subsidise the others, but we have to close the whole lot while simultaneously losing millions upon millions of pounds on inappropriate investment in property, hotel ventures, as they have done. Foxley's was not donated to Girl Guides 101 years ago for commercial development. It was donated for the use of young people.
The Minister back in now. We're very short of time. Minister.
Thank you, Sir George. Look, one of the challenges of trying to answer a debate about a decision an independent organisation has made is that there are limits to what I'm able to say, but that's why I made the commitment right at the beginning to highlight the concerns from honourable members here today. He's raised another valid point, and I'll ensure that that question is in that letter that I sent to them, and as I promised, he will receive a reply. So I better conclude, Sir George. So youth services and organisations such as Girlguiding provide an essential service for young people and communities, and as a department we are committed to ensuring that all young people in England have access to regular clubs and activities, and as I say, those important adventures away from home and opportunities to volunteer. And to deliver these services, young people want and deserve, a partnership has to happen between central, local government, private sector, the young people themselves, crucially, and those great organisations that have provided so much. I recognise the strength of feeling that's been raised in this debate today. I have made that commitment to write to the organisation and highlight them. Because I do recognise that this is something that is concerning all of those members I mentioned right at the beginning of the debate.
The question is that this House has considered the role and future of youth programmes and girl guiding. Many of the opinions say aye. Aye. And the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. Can I remind